Hey everyone, my name is Wes, and welcome back to another episode of Terror Talk where I discuss creepy clips online. I created this original horror music to add to the video, and I hope you enjoy it. Be sure to leave your own comments, and when you're done watching, check the description if you'd like to listen to my music without the commentary. Now let's get into it and have some fun.
I'm 29 years old, and one of the only things that's ever really helped me clear my head is camping. Not campgrounds or national parks where there's other people around. I'm talking true middle of nowhere camping. I grew up in Northern California, and I've spent the better part of my adult life learning to find those remote little pockets where you can still feel like the only person left on Earth. This story took place a few months ago. I had just broken up with my ex. Let's just
Do you have any experiences related around camping that are really scary? And do you like going off into nature alone? Like that? Just complete solitude? For me, not so much. That's not really my cup of tea. But I can understand why some people would like that. It does sound rather peaceful and relaxing to get away from the craziness of society, especially what it's become today. But yeah, let me know if you have any scary stories related to this kind of thing in the comments.
just say I was going through it. I needed to be alone. So one day, I just packed up my truck and headed out. I didn't have a specific plan. I just threw some gear together and decided to go back to a quiet riverside spot I'd stumbled across once before. It wasn't an official campsite or anything, just a little bend in the river you could reach if you followed this barely there dirt road past a whole lot of nothing. I got there sometime in the late afternoon, but the second I turned down the dirt path that led to the river, my stomach sank a little. There were already two trucks parked near the trailhead, one gray and one white. I couldn't see anyone around, but just knowing other people were out there kind of killed the vibe for me. I hadn't driven all this way out in the middle of nowhere to interact with people. I sat there for a second, debating whether I should just turn around and find another spot. But I told myself it was a big stretch of river, and chances were whoever owned those trucks were camped far enough away that I wouldn't even see them. I hiked maybe 15 minutes downriver, and I saw two guys fishing up ahead. They looked like the type you'd expect to see fishing: thick beards, a little overweight, heavy boots, but it seemed like they were more focused on something else. As I got closer, one of them quickly covered something with his jacket and gave me this awkward half smile. As I passed, he called out, saying something about how they were just target shooting cans and didn't mean to freak me out. I just gave a polite nod and kept walking without saying anything. As I kept walking, I couldn't help but replay the guy's comments in my head. It wasn't even what he said that bothered me. It was how rushed and awkward it came out. Like he was trying too hard to sound casual. I got that uneasy feeling you get when something doesn't quite add up, but I pushed it down. People out there weren't exactly known for their social skills. It wasn't that weird for rural folks to be a little off when it came to talking to strangers.
It is a little bit weird of an interaction, isn't it? Especially if it felt really rushed. And I'm learning more and more in life the longer the more it goes by to basically trust your gut. If your gut is telling you something and you strongly believe it, like so deeply in your gut that you know it has to be true, like don't fight it. Like just believe it. And if you are in a dangerous situation or a situation where you need to be careful of things, like listen to that. Like don't just dismiss it.
I told myself to let it go and focus on finding a good spot to set up camp. I found a spot a little further down the bend where the trees were thicker and the trail dipped out of sight. It wasn't perfect, but it was tucked away enough that I felt like I had my own space. I set up camp, pulled out a book, and tried to settle in. It started raining lightly not long after, so I threw on my rain jacket and kept at it, letting the sound of the river and the soft drizzle drown everything else out. Later, I wandered down to the rocks by the river's edge to reflect a little bit. That's when I noticed someone across the water. It was one of the guys from earlier, the one who had called out to me, only this time he was alone. He spotted me and waved. I hesitated, then waved back, figuring it was better to be friendly. He yelled across, asking for my name. I don't know why, but I shouted back my real name, Anisha, without really thinking about it. He stood there for a second after I answered. then pulled something out of his jacket. At first, I thought it was a phone, but then I realized it looked more like a disposable camera. Before I could even process it, he held it up and took a picture of me from across the river. And then, without another word, he just turned and started walking back up the riverbank like nothing had happened.
Wow. Like, that would be really creepy, wouldn't it? What would you do in that situation? Would you get out of there or would you wait it out? Because that is really odd behavior, isn't it? And almost kind of stalker like, you know? But dang, that is creepy.
I was beyond creeped out. The weird speech patterns and mannerisms were one thing, but taking a picture of me, that was next level strange. I headed back to my campsite and just figured I'd stay put for the rest of the night. After the sun went down, I crawled into my tent and tried to get some sleep, but my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept replaying the breakup in my head, picking apart every word, every mistake, every what if. I don't know how long I lied there like that, just listening to the river and the light patter of rain against the tent. At some point, though, I started hearing something else. Faint, uneven sounds, like someone stepping carefully over wet ground. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just the rain or some animal, but the longer I listened, the clearer it became. Footsteps circling the campsite, and the second I made that connection, my stomach dropped straight through the ground. I didn't even have to wonder who it might be. I'm no fool. I never go into the woods alone without protection, and this was no exception. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my handgun from where I kept it tucked by my sleeping bag. Then I unzipped the tent and stepped out into the rain. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but I needed to stay calm. I clicked my flashlight on and swept it across the trees. And there he was, that creep from earlier, standing a few yards away, half hiding behind a tree. He wasn't smiling or scowling. He just had this blank expression on his face, like he wasn't all there mentally. The scariest part wasn't his demeanor, though, but the fact that he was holding a small axe in his left hand. For a second, I couldn't move. All I could think about was how far I was from anyone, how nobody would even hear me scream if it came to that. But somehow, I managed to raise the gun and level it at him. I forced my voice to stay calm, even though every part of me was screaming. As sternly as I could, I said, "Leave now or I'll kill you." His facial expression didn't change at all. It was like my words meant nothing to him. After a few seconds of silence, he mumbled something about how his friend Ivan had discouraged him from coming to find me, that he had to take care of Ivan. I didn't wait for him to say anything else. I fired a shot straight into the trees above his head. He stumbled a bit, clearly not expecting me to do that. I leveled the gun at him again, a little more confident now. I told him it was his last chance and to drop the axe. He did, and a huge wave of relief washed over me. But I wasn't out of the woods yet. I told him to take his shoes off so that he'd have trouble following me, then made sure he didn't have any other weapons on his person. Once I was sure he wasn't armed, I told him to go to my tent and grab my gear. I watched him like a hawk as he fumbled with my stuff, forcing him to toss it all out into the open where I could see it. I packed the essentials as fast as I could, never letting him out of my sight. I jammed the axe into my backpack and made sure I wasn't forgetting anything. I'd have to leave the tent behind, but that was a small price to pay for staying alive. Then grabbed his shoes and threw them as far as I could into the darkness, and I told him to walk in the opposite direction. I kept the light on him the whole time. The moment he walked far enough out of sight, I turned and started hiking back up the river as fast as I could. That was the scariest part of the whole encounter. Stumbling through the pitch black forest in the rain with a potential murderer behind me. I wasn't sure if he was following me, but I didn't care. I just kept going, trying to use the flashlight as minimally as possible. Both pickup trucks were still in the pullout when I finally made it back to my car. I didn't stop though. I threw everything in and sped out of there. When I got cell service back, I called the police and reported the whole incident, describing my location as best as I could. A few months have passed since then. I'm not sure if anything ever came of it, but I'm not going out of my way to find out. What still scares me most about the whole thing is that comment he made about his friend Ivan, that he, quote unquote, took care of him. I really don't want to think about what that means. There's only so many explanations. Just glad I was armed. Could have easily lost my life that night if I hadn't been.
Yeah, I agree. Being armed like that in the middle of the forest or the woods is a really smart idea. And I definitely think she handled this whole situation really well and really smart because, like, having him pack up her things like that, I think was a smart move because if she had done it herself, he could have easily attacked her while she was doing it. So I think that she was definitely smart, like really smart in how she approached that whole thing. And you definitely want to have protection with you out there in the middle of the wilderness. And this is kind of why I don't like the wilderness like that. It's just too isolated for me personally. But like I said, I can see why certain people do like it. But either way, super creepy story, isn't it? What would you have done in this situation? Let me know in the comments below. But I hope that you enjoyed my commentary and the music, and I will see you in the next video.